Every time you think, every time you feel, and every emotion you have feeds the system. This is their food. We are their cattle.
But okay, was there a battle then of good and evil and good lost? Like what is this place? Like why have all this? Why and then why aren't you freaking out about it?
It's trying to do what the things in your dreams and all the other things that are happening, what they're trying to do is elicit a response from you. They feed off your response.
Am I still thinking like what? It can't just all be that, can it?
And what I tell people is, if you're going to be anywhere to hack a system or destroy a system, it's always from within is the best place to be, and that's where we are. So this is probably our best opportunity to be able to do it.
Unless you can get out. Unless you can get out, I don't even see now what the point of even wanting to know that would be.
That's why I offered the solution. That was my whole purpose behind the solution.
Okay, so I want to put a small disclaimer on this episode and just kind of say if you are maybe new on your spiritual path, or I don't know, just maybe not in a great place in life, I don't know if you should watch this one. And I'm saying that with obviously love and like my intention is just I don't want to shake you up, because it's one of those conversations that could shake you up. I think it's important to hear different opinions, different sides of things, different perspectives. We have Mike on today, and he's been leaving his body for a long time. I mean, he's done it hundreds and hundreds of times. And his perspective on why we're here and what this all is it's quite shocking if you haven't heard it before. So it is the prison planet theory, which I've seen comments about, but this is my first deep dive. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot to take in. So it makes me want to have on more people to discuss this more. But, at the end of the day, I always say, let your experience, lead the way. Don't be married to your ideas. If you have a new experience, sure, let that change your ideas, but don't just take something because someone said it or because they sound confident or because they swear this is the truth. I think we all have to learn to critical think and take in the information and hear all different sides and go with what feels right to you. That would be my advice for this one. But regardless, it's a very, very, very interesting conversation. So without further ado, let's get on with it.
No, I actually have 3 books: My Dark
three.
Explorations, The Spiritualist Manifesto, and Leaving the Illusion of Life.
Leaving the Illusion. That's the one I didn't see. Okay. Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, look, right on par with what we talk about here. I guess we'll start with the beginning. I mean, you kind of lead the way here as far as what you want to share. But from my understanding, you started learning a while ago. It took you about a year to learn how to leave your body. You do it through lucid dreaming. Is that correct? Or that's kind of
I use lucid dreaming as a gateway into the astral. I had experiences as a kid, but I didn't remember that until I actually had my first one. So my controlled one, it took about a year.
Okay. Is it weird for you to see like how popular this is getting?
I anticipated it to be more popular actually, when I started reading about it in the late 80s, it was pretty popular. I mean, but then again, when I say popular in groups, there were people that were like more into the metaphysical, and that was where the popularity was. But the normal people, they didn't hear about it, or either that, or if they did hear about it, then they would basically just brush it off because it wasn't something to, it wasn't socially acceptable like it is now. Back then, it was much different. When I grew up, you don't talk about that kind of stuff. They might send you to the state hospital, and
you're a total weirdo, right?
Yeah. That's what happens. So you had to be very careful about what you talked about, because then you thought about being weird, and once you got that stigma, it's like, nah, you're not getting out of that.
Yeah, there's like a whole generation, maybe 2 generations of people that I say are like, they're the brave ones. Because for me, it's super easy to talk about this stuff. It's accepted now, at least somewhat. Whereas the people prior to this who like were kind of pioneering the path, those guys and girls, gangsters. I mean, that was a crazy time to write this stuff. Like Robert Monroe to write his book. Everyone in that time, it's like, that's nuts to write that stuff. It's really crazy.
And that's the first book that got me into it.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about, I mean, you don't have to go over your process. I don't know if you share your process or anything like that, but tell me like what is your process? Let's start there.
for astral projection or out of body experiences, they're the same. A lot of people get hung up on these names, but they mean the same thing. They're all the same thing. Okay. So let me first go into this and then we'll go into that. Okay, first of all, we are a physical body on the physical plane. Okay. Then we have a spirit body on the astral plane. Then we have a soul on the mental planes. Okay, so the astral planes and the mental planes, so the soul and the spirit, two different connections, two different bodies for that. It's no different. I mean, it's as different as from the soul to the physical, from the spirit to the soul. It's a different body. They all reside on those planes. They're always on those planes, and we're always connected to them physically. Okay, so we've got the three body system. Then we've got a subconscious which oversees each one of us, is integrated with each one of us, and then and that's what I call the oversight. And what we are is conscious energy. So we're basically trapped within a three body system overseen by the subconscious. So we can go into that in depth. But anyway, so when I first started, didn't really know much about that. I decided I want to get into astral projection. So I read Robert Monroe's book. And then I started trying some of his techniques, which, he's got quite a bit different techniques, and they didn't really work that well for me. So I tried a couple other techniques that I thought might work for me. The technique that I ended up settling on, one that I thought would work the best, is because I had already been recording my dreams for about 2 or 3 years before that. Prior to that, I heard that if you started recording your dreams, you'd remember your dreams more, and therefore maybe you'd find something to connect with, in the dream state. So I was doing that on a regular basis. So I said, okay, so what the whole idea is you question yourself over and over many times during the day. You would ask yourself, am I dreaming? Am I awake? And you would look at a solid object. You turn away, you look back at it. And if that object had changed, then you knew you were in the dream state, because the dream state things happen quickly. So that right there, what it gets you to do is to doubt or question your reality. Once you start questioning your reality on a regular basis, what happens is eventually it'll spill over, because if you're remembering your dreams, then at some point you'll say, oh, wait, there's something not right there. So what happened is, after about 11 months of doing that constantly every day and reading as much as I could about it at the time, because there was no YouTube or video on it. And so I was just keeping myself aware of what was going on, recording my dreams, doing this, and just kept pushing and pushing. And eventually one night I was sleeping, and then I was in a dream, and something triggered me that wasn't right, or didn't seem right. And as soon as it did, I was consciously awake. I was lucid within that dream. And at that point, I followed the instructions of what I read. I said to myself in my mind, I want to have an out-of-body experience. And as soon as I thought that, I was pulled directly out of the dream, and I was in the astral on the side of my house. I was floating about, 10 or 12 feet above the ground. It was in November, late November. It was cold outside. I could feel it was cold, but I wasn't cold. But I think the most important part, and a lot of people say, well, I'm not sure if I'm astral projecting. There is absolutely no question in your mind when you're in that state, because number one, you realize where you're at, and you also realize your body is asleep in bed. You can feel them both. At that point, when your consciousness moves into the astral body, you cannot move your physical body. You can't until it returns back, until those two bodies connect again. And at that point, you can move your body. So I'm there. I feel my body and warm in bed, and I feel myself out there. My vision, which would obviously be through the third eye, my vision is almost 360 degrees, completely. It's like being somewhere and really feeling like you're there, versus, when you go like see a beautiful landscape, you're there and you kind of feel like, wow, this is really cool. But it's even bigger than that, because you can take in more of where you're at, because there's more there to consume, and you kind of feel it. Versus, like if the wind's blowing, you feel it on your skin, but you don't feel it inside you. It's almost like you feel more, you see more. There's just more of an experience in that state. So it's not like, well, I think it was just a dream. No, There's absolutely no question if you've experienced it. There's no replacement, nothing. So I was there, I was floating, and I was just making note of everything to try to do, try to figure out what the difference was and everything. And then at that point, I don't know, it was probably a few minutes because you can't compare time. You can't say, well, it was exactly 5 minutes unless I would have had a timer exactly when I left to when I came back. I don't know because time doesn't exist anywhere outside of this physical realm. So I don't know. I just say a couple minutes because to me, I would judge it as that, maybe 15, 20 minutes. So I came back, I wrote everything down, and then I knew I was successful at that point. But I also kind of realized that when I was a kid, I was having these projections. I just didn't know what they were. I didn't have a definition for them. So that's what I knew it. I put it together, and then I said, I'm going to keep working, keep working, keep working. And I did. I just kept working on that for every night. Or if I wake up in the middle of the night, I just keep working on it. It's like, and every day I would think about it. There was absolutely no time that I wasn't um, driven to succeed. And I think that's the biggest point that most people will miss when they're trying something like this. Like if you see somebody who's a basketball star or a baseball star or whatever, they didn't get there by watching YouTube videos or by just working part-time at it. They put their all into it. They had the drive and they applied themselves to succeed. And that's the only way you're going to do it. This was the same thing. The only way that you're going to get past a lot of the roadblocks and a lot of the issues that are out there is if you apply yourself and stick with it and keep pushing. Because if something comes up in your way and you give up, then you're really not into it. You have to push and push. I think that's the biggest fault in most people.
Okay, I love all of that. Okay, so you're saying you're started with you say start questioning your reality. That's step number one. Is
Right.
like really start doing that. How do you make sure you don't go to the loony bin? You know what I mean? Like what if that sets you off on this path where you're like to me that sounded like kind of sketchy, you know? Like I'm like, okay, what if that makes
Well,
my
you have to put this in perspective. Now, what I'm saying is, here I'm at work. Okay. I'm walking around. I worked at a warehouse at the time. Okay. And so I have to keep this in the back of my mind. And what I did is I had a watch, like a digital watch where I could set a timer on there. And at first, I just had to kind of remind myself to ask myself. So, like, I'd be walking, I'm like, oh, okay. And I'd look at, say, a forklift or something real quick, turn my head, look away, and look back at it. Am I awake? And I tell myself, yeah, okay, just move right on. I'd move back on. And eventually it got to the point where I was doing it so often that it became a habit. And once it becomes a habit, then you don't have to keep reminding yourself or have reminders. So I wasn't driving myself crazy with it. What I was doing is I was using this to get my what's happened is when something becomes a habit, the only way you can get to that point is you keep repeating it over and over and over. And so what I was doing is I was repeating that over and over and over, and it became a habit. So I'd ask myself, and it became just in passing. I mean, I could be at a concert and look at something and then look back and look again. And like, it's just, it takes a second or two. It doesn't take long. And all it does is it gets you to question where you're at. And that's all it basically is. And when you question your reality, then you're setting yourself up in the dream state that hopefully that question will come up because it's happening so often. And so another thing I tell everybody, because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Anybody who says, I have 100% way for you to succeed in out of body experiences is selling you snake oil. I've been doing all this stuff long enough. I've read enough books and of people selling snake oil and seen YouTube videos where everybody's trying to sell you, oh, I got the perfect thing. I can get you out in 10 minutes. Oh, no, not going to happen unless you somehow naturally have that ability, which not many people do. If you've got to work for that, you've got to find your own avenue for that. Some people utilize what they call hemisync. Robert Monroe had it, they listen to those tapes and they can astral project based on that. Or some people can utilize this as a gateway. Other people have to do the separation mode where they have to go into like a numb state. I've tried that. I've tried a lot of those and they just don't work for me. That's me personally, because we're not microwaves or toasters. We're not made on an assembly line. Every one of us is different. So you have to find what works for you. So, like I said, anybody guaranteeing their thing's going to work is lying, And there's a lot out there because people want to sell videos, they want to sell books, they want to sell, whatever, and that's just the way things are. So you have to get past all the BS to get down to the meat and bones. So,
I love what you said there. So it's like you're starting the pattern and you do it so much so that it becomes automatic almost in your dream, right? It's like that you get to a point in this world where you've done it so much in your dream, hopefully you're just, yeah, automatic without thinking it. You'll start to question things and then you will wake up, which is great because often I get all the time where I see it in the comments, even myself, Mike. I'm like, how do I, I've had lucid dreams, but I don't know what triggered it, right? Like I've had the moment
right.
where I realized I was dreaming, but there's been no system for me to like implement where I know to do that. So I love that's the first time I've ever heard anyone say that. So I love that. Um, okay, so and have you been able to teach this your process to other people? I know you said it's not automatic, but have you taught it to other people and it's worked for them?
I don't. I put it out
Or
there.
you
I
don't?
put it on my channel. I
Okay.
mean, there's no secret. I mean, I didn't come up with this. I utilize suggestions from different other sources, and I think what it is, well, I know this. When you do this, and like I said, I can't guarantee it's going to work for everybody. You have to find your own way, but try everything that you can find and use what works best for you. But what happened is once I started doing this, then it set me up. It set me up. It set what you can call your consciousness to where I was being triggered in other states of consciousness that allowed me to remain lucid. So it didn't just help in the dream state, it helped above and beyond. It helped me farther down the line because once I was able to be successful in astral projecting, I figured, okay, I'm on it now. No problem. I can do it more now. Well, I tried again for a couple more months. Nothing. And then eventually I became lucid in a dream. And before I even had the chance or the opportunity to think to myself, hey, I want to have an out of body experience, I'm already pulled out of the dream. I'm pulled out of the dream and I'm laying in bed with my eyes closed. And I thought, what the hell happened? I didn't get an opportunity. And then all of a sudden there was this oval image with my eyes closed in front of me. Now at the time I knew I'm utilizing my third eye still, but now I'm physically awake and I know my consciousness is in my body. So I'm not in the astral because I can move my fingers and toes. So I'm like, okay, I'm in the physical, but I'm in an altered state in the physical, still utilizing my third eye, but I'm fully awake. At this point, I can have a conversation if I want to. So I'm seeing this oval image, and it's just like looking at a video screen, but in an oval shape. And I could see this town by the water, kind of weird looking buildings are white, and I didn't recognize it. And I could see it was live because I could see the water moving. And then around it was a border, like purple border, and it had a bunch of writing in it, but I didn't recognize what any of the writing was. So I'm just kind of looking at this whole thing, trying to figure out, all right, what is this? What's this supposed to mean and everything. I mean, I don't have a photographic memory. So, I'm doing the best I can to try to remember what all's going on and try to possibly interact with it. So I'm watching this and it lasts maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds. And then it pixelates and it just disappears. So I get my dream book out and I'm writing it down and I called it trying to remember what I even called it at that time. I just made up a name because no, I can't remember what it was. I called it something and I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't know if it'll happen again, but I want to make sure I make a good description of it so that I can go back someday and look at it. So, but what happened is that set the precedent. So every time I became lucid within a dream, and it became pretty often, sometimes I could do it a couple times in a week. I would be thrust into this on my side in bed with my eyes closed, and I would get this image, these images, these live images. And some of them were from like a desert landscape and all these different things. And not all of them most of them didn't come with any description. But eventually, instead of like this shape, it came my full peripheral vision, like almost 360 degrees. And I'm like here, and it feels like it's right in front of my face. So like I'm just looking at it going, okay, well, I can't really interact with it. Can't move anything. but I can sit here and experience this while it's happening. Well, many years down the line, I discovered they were portals, live portals between my location and another location. And then they last anywhere between 15 and 30 seconds. And what I also realized was these connections were somewhat energy intensive. If I had one in a week, it would be 4K quality and it would last maybe 20 to 30 seconds. And then if I had two in a week, the second one would be about half the image quality, maybe 1080 or less. And then it would last about half the amount of time. So I realized eventually that they were consuming some portion of my energy in order to hold those portals open. I wasn't initiating them, but I was being put in the situation with them. And I was somehow, when I'm connected with those, there's some kind of an energy, um, there's some kind of an energy travel in between me and the other side. So there's things that I know about it, but I can't tell you how I know about it. I'm sure the other side's the same. So this goes on for this has been going on since 1990, 91. So, and sometimes I have two in a week, sometimes I have one in a month, and sometimes, it just, there's no telling. As much as I can have a lucid, uh, a lucid experiences is when it happens. And I have different ways that I can trigger them that it makes it more possible for me to have them, but it doesn't guarantee it's going to happen. And what I tell people is the closest I can come to the state that I'm in at the time is the hypnagogic state. Because generally it's right before you enter the dream state or right when you leave the dreams, exit the dream state. That's for the hypnagogic. So it's in between the dream state and our waking reality. Somewhere in there is that hypnagogic state. And that's the state that I'm utilizing to access the portals. That's what I'm in. So it took me years to figure all this out. And then eventually, after about maybe 15 years of doing it, I figured out, because they stopped happening. I go into the state and it's all black and I'm like, well, what's going on? Then I figured out how to initiate them myself. So it was like a learning process. I knew what it felt like. I knew what state I needed to be in. So if I replicated that by imagining something to trigger it, that's what I did. And that's where it took off from there. And I thought, well, there's got to be other ways in order to initiate this whole process that doesn't involve having to go to bed every night. Because, I mean, you try and you're not successful. You got to keep waiting and waiting. I'm not a very patient person. So for me, it's not going to work out very well. So I was driving to work one day, and this is, I don't know, like 15 years ago. And I'm driving to work and I'm in a long commute. It was in the summertime, it was hot. And I'm just kind of sitting there zoning because you're just sitting in traffic. You're like moving a couple inches and you stop moving. And it's like, what else you got to do besides? I mean, I've listened to I listen to so many songs or so many audiobooks, and you're like, I got to do something else, So I'm daydreaming, what else is there to do? And I realize there's something there. There's something behind that daydream that I got to figure out what it is. So it took me about 2 years, 2 years to sit down and really try to figure it out. And then also to try to figure out how I could enter the state to where I could access it without, obviously having to spend hours, because I'm not a meditator. It doesn't work for me. So I figured out how to access the state. I utilized the same hypnagogic type state, but the dream state and the daydream state are very, very close when it comes to brainwave activity. So you're very close in those two states, and I can enter a daydream in like that. So I figured, okay, since it's behind the daydream state, I'm going to figure out how to do it. And what I discovered was, so here's your daydream. It's showing here's your movie screen daydream right here that your consciousness is looking at. And while your consciousness is looking at that, your subconscious is going behind that movie screen, different dimensions and alternate realities. It's visiting other things, getting information from other beings, and then it comes back while the picture screen is keeping you occupied. Well, I also realized a long time ago that the dream state is the same thing. So you're seeing the dream, your consciousness is watching the dream on the movie screen, and your subconsciousness is going the astral. And then what you get back is a bunch of filtered junk, and it's the same thing with the daydream state. You're not getting the events that happen in the astral. You're only getting this filtered junk that has to do with your life, and usually it's work related, boring stuff. So I followed the subconsciousness behind there, and then I would see what was going on. But when I came back through the veil, it erased all my memories like a hard drive. So I knew something happened, but I couldn't retrieve that information. So I did it probably hundreds of times to get through it. I mean, I'm the type of guy that if you see a roadblock, I'm just going to keep driving through it until the damn thing's flat. Well, that's what I ended up doing. I was able to go behind there enough times where I was successful, and I finally brought it back. And once I figured it out, I kept doing it more and more. And so I figured I'm not going to forget how to do this now. So I was entering a state near the hypnagogic behind the daydream state, and I was traveling behind, and this utilizes the portals as well. I could see what's happening in alternate states, different dimensions and alternate realities. So we're living all through different lives, and I'm seeing one dimensional, two-dimensional worlds in different dimensions. And from what I can see from what my personal experiences are, there's an unlimited amount of different dimensions as well as alternate realities. It's just endless. So all this is being hidden from us. And this is not in the astral, not in the mental planes. This is beyond that.
Okay, a couple things I want to say. So, you validated something for me that I've never had anyone validate before, and I've talked to a decent amount of people at this point. But the very first thing that ever happened to me, Mike, was a portal, and I tell everyone about that. I don't know if you've heard an episode where I described it, but
Huh.
I was literally sitting in my bed, and at this point, I was told by my therapist, basically, I'd struggled with drugs, and then I was getting off them, and they're like, "You need to try something else. You need to try meditating." So I started doing that, but just off Headspace, right? Like 5 minutes a day. That got boring, and then I did 10 minutes, then I did 20, and I got to a point where I was like, "Okay, I could do, like, 30 minutes," and I shut down my thoughts, right? So I got decent at it, and then one time I was doing it right before bed, and it was the first time where I'm sitting there and it's black and I saw colors. And it was like I saw green first. And I was like watching it and I was like, hmm. And then it went purple. And then I was like, I wonder if I could turn it red. And then I went red. And then I went yellow. And then it started speeding up. I was like not doing anything anymore, just observing. And it sped up and it was going crazy. And then boom, a portal opened up. Exactly like you said. It was 4K. It was like looking at this screen right here. And I remember like looking at it and it was kind of funny what it was. It was like a meadow. It looked like rolling hills kinda, and, like, I remember sitting there, and I think I got so excited that it dissipated. It disappeared. I woke up, it, like, made me woke up. I turned to my wife, and I, like, woke her up, and I was like, "You don't understand. I just saw a portal." And she was like, "Alright, cool, babe." Like, and that was the first time where I was like, "Alright, I didn't make that up." That was, like, looking at, like I said, at this screen. And you're the first person who's really mentioned portals to me in that way. And one thing I wanna say that I haven't talked about before is, like, the portal mic had, like, a I don't know if it was pink or purple, I don't remember that, but I remember it being, like, squiggly, like, it had this, like, on the outside of it. It was very strange, and it's never happened again. I've never been able to get to that point, but one thing I wanna say is, like, this has been happening to me. I only notice it with my wife because she now sleeps with me every night. She would always hit me and be like, not hit me, but she'd be like, "Hey, stop snoring." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm literally fully conscious
Um,
right now." And she'd be like, "No, you were just snoring." And I'm like, "No, I wasn't. I'm literally sitting here just thinking about my day, thinking about things I gotta do." She's like, "Jordan, I don't know what to tell you, but you're snoring." And it's very interesting because I am in that weird state. I guess I can do it naturally because I'm very conscious, very aware of what I'm thinking about, but apparently my body is somewhat shut down. So that's kind of that hypnagogic state you're kind of talking about. It feels
yeah,
like it
it's
at least.
it's that's the closest state that I can address. I mean, that's the only one that I know of because I've asked people, I've tried to figure it out, and that's the only one that really fits that I know has a title to it. Um, but that state right there, it could be pretty wide. I mean, I'm sure there's varying portions of that state that it can allow certain things, and if you're coming out of it or if you're going into it or if you're in the center of it, but it's a very short state. I tell people like what we're doing is when I say access another dimension through a portal and stuff, I tell everybody like the astral and the mental plane, everything is in this space. Everything is here. Time and space that we think about doesn't exist because that's not the reality of how things are. So if I access something through a portal, what we're doing is it's like, okay, if you have a radio station that's set for 97 and you have another radio station at 97.3 on the dial, they're, this far apart or whatever, but they're two different stations. But if you have the ability to tune those two stations in together, because they're both in the same, they're in the same place, because all the radio stations are just floating around in the air. What we're doing is that portal allows us to open a connection between those two, and we're right here. So if you see it right here, it's right here. It's just that you have the ability to connect two frequencies together so that they can be in the same space at the same time, which they already are, and you can see and communicate. So with the portals, I wasn't sure that's what they were. I had a real good indication, but obviously until somebody really says what they were. So after I started the dream state thing, not the dream state, but the daydream state, I call them glimpses because at first they were just a glimpse of that reality. So once I got good at it, I actually went back there, made a connection, and there was this long cave. Okay. So I just show up there and there's a long cave and there's somebody that's, that's, that's like with a darkened hood on the other side that I can't see their face. And the first thing that they told me was, what you're seeing is a portal. What you're using is a portal. But you have to remember this. What you see on their side is what they're seeing on your side. So if I see 50 foot wide by 15 foot high on their side, that's what they're seeing on my side. So everything's visible on both sides. So what I see is what they see on my side. So that helps because I have seen other beings on other sides. Now, I've also figured out that there are different types of portal connections. One of them is visual only. So both sides can see each other, but there's no interaction other than just maybe, thought or whatever. Then there's ones that you can travel through. And there's a couple other differences in variations in portals. And I've come to the conclusion, I think the portals are a natural phenomenon, like you would think of a black hole or something. But they're also, I believe, made out of intelligent energy that they can appear based upon what's going on. Because if I can create one, which I'm not really creating one, it's more like, it's almost like if you have something like, let's say you have like a robot in your house and your thoughts can trigger it. Your thoughts are triggering that connection. So I think that's how a lot of these beings are able to move between dimensions and stuff because they're able to connect with those portals, utilize them, and then that's what happens. So,
Okay, but why? Why have all these portals? Why is this happening? Like, I want to. What is your opinion of why we're here?
well, okay, so a long time ago, I had a real good feeling that well, we're here doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. And even when I was going through the experiences, I didn't really think about it because when I have these experiences, I'm using my consciousness and conscious energy. I'm going there. I'm not making any judgment calls. I'm not really doing much thinking. I'm absorbing. I document. And then after the point where I document is where I start to think about and judge or make judgment calls based upon what's going on. So after I had many experiences over many decades, I went through a process of going through all my records, all my documentation, and trying to figure out how this is going to apply to what's happening here. What good is this? If I had all these experiences over 30 something years, 35 years, and it means nothing, it was just like a waste. There has to be some utilization I can grab onto in order for it to be worth something. So I went through everything, question, question, question. Finally, I came to the conclusion, I had an idea, but I came to the conclusion of what's happening. We've got this 3-body system with the overseeing subconsciousness. Okay. So what I classify is our conscious energy, which is us, is trapped in this three body system overseen by the subconsciousness. So basically, we're in a prison. Earth itself is a prison. And then the astral is what I consider the prison yard. Most of the beings that conduct what's going on, it trickles down from the astral down to the earth. And what's happening is, and it's been happening for, this is, this civilization could be the 100 billionth civilization. What Earth says is, just like we get, you die, you're reborn, you're in a recycling process. It's just over and over and over. The civilizations, the same thing. What they do is the information trickles down to key players in the game on Earth, which I've always called this the game of life, but
Who are key players? What does that mean?
key players, there's always going to be people that are going to step up in a hierarchy over civilizations. It doesn't matter which civilizations, which religion, religious figures, that sort of thing. They're going to create a civilization based upon rules and regulations passed on to them through this third party non-physical. What they do is they create it. The whole purpose behind it is to get people to become somewhat successful. And the whole time, integrated into all these civilizations is a level of technology, because the beings that created this whole system that is around us are technologically based, far beyond what we could understand. And they're also non-physical beings. What I say is, there's a darkness that surrounds us, and we are the light that they feed off of, the energy. So create a system of bondage. And the first thing they want to do is to give you the indication that you have choice, that you have freedom of choice, you have freedom of life, you can choose what you want to do, but they want to keep you in this game. And how do you keep people in the game? Well, when you're brought here on the earth, in the physical, you have to have food, you have to have water, you have to have, at some point, shelter. And then you have feelings, you have emotions, you have thoughts, you have all this physical baggage that when you've left the physical, when I go to these other connections, there's none of that. When I go there, no thoughts in my mind. When I go there, there's no time. There's no space. There's only the present, what's happening right there. I don't feel any needs. I don't have any requirements. I'm existing. And when you come back here, then you see and you feel how much baggage we really have, because what they're doing is they're feeding off of our energy. Every time you think, every time you feel, and every emotion you have feeds the system. This is their food. We are their cattle.
Mike, why'd you have to go here? Now okay, so do they hate that we're having this conversation? Who's
Do
they?
who?
The
Well,
people who built this thing.
I'll tell you how I got to these different points. When I was having the astral projections as a child, it was always some form of kidnapping. It was always some form of attack on me or something. This is when I'm a little kid. I didn't experience it. I didn't understand it. I had no concept of what was going on. And then when I got older, obviously I stopped having these things. And I thought, okay, I grew out of it and whatever. Started again 15 years ago after I discovered the glimpses. And it was every night. It was every night. And what would happen is, every time I would have an insight, I call them the dark ones. Every time my dream would be normal. I'm walking to somebody's house or whatever. I get up to the front porch, and all of a sudden everything starts to pixelate, get real dark. And I'm thinking, oh man. So the hair stands up on the back of my neck. I know at this point, I'm lucid. I'm awake. Okay. And this is still going on, and I'm awake. Then all of a sudden a portal appears. I'm pulled out of the dream, and it kept happening. Every time a portal would appear, what it was is desensitizing me from these experiences. Then finally one night, like, I don't know, weeks later, because I was having it almost every night, it started again. And this time I'm sitting at a table with my wife in the dream, and we're sitting there and we're having a conversation. And then all of a sudden it starts to pixelate. I become lucid. I realize what's going on. The darkness comes across, and I know it's right across from me on the table, and I'm looking at it. And the more that I look, the harder it is to see anything because the the darkness is it absorbs light. That darkness absorbs the light. I stand up to it and I face obviously what I see there is the face, and I turn my back on it and I left. Because what it's trying to do, what the things in your dreams and all the other things that are happening, what they're trying to do is elicit a response from you. They feed off your response. Um, if I were to get all angry or scared or anything like that, that's the energy that it wants.
What
So when
about
I
love?
want,
What about pleasure? What about, like, does that
I'm
does it
sure that it
matter?
can. I'm sure that that could be some point, but I think in my opinion, the whole point of the anger, the frustration, the depression, the hate, I believe that is probably more beneficial than anything else from my personal opinion and experiences.
This is like Monsters Inc., man, but, like, in a really fucked up way. I mean, this is, like, my head goes to, "Did I do something wrong? Is that why am I here?" Like, that's interesting. Okay. Also, Mike, when I was a kid, I was the only one in my family that was deathly I would be scared every night, and I was scared specifically of things breaking in, and I don't even know I didn't have a reference to that as a kid. So my mom would always tell me, like, "You were literally so scared of things breaking in." And I'm like, "Well," but I don't remember my dreams, but I'm telling you, it happened all the time, and I would sprint to my parents' room, and it makes me feel like something was happening like that, and I just don't remember it, but something like that, because then years later, I had my sleep paralysis, and I felt like there's a being in the room. I couldn't explain it to anyone, but it felt dark, I'll tell you that, and
Well,
now we're here.
if what I had to do was step back and look at, okay, I had to look at the physical, and I had to look at my experience in the non-physical. I had to break away from a lot of the pre-programmed ideas and things that I was taught in order to understand what was really happening. Because if you if you are um if you're just looking at one thing, or you've only experienced, like, okay, so for instance, let me say this. If for some reason you had an NDE and you go to the astral or whatever and you see, Jesus and grandma and your whole family and everything's great and blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's one experience. Okay. I've had hundreds. Okay. And when you keep having experiences related to that, you have to keep digging deeper to see what's under the surface, because the surface is great. It's a beautiful, sky over the water, and everything looks good, and you're happy with it. But if you go down below and dig deeper, that's when you start to get answers. So that's the same thing even in the physical. I had to dig deeper to try to figure out what was going on. I knew that, okay, first of all, you know, and I'm not against anybody's thought process, but what I'm saying is you have to look at things from a realistic standpoint. Okay, I've gone to different churches. I've asked for answers, and I wanted to know what was really going on. And I was always told, "Well, you got to find that out for yourself." Well, I did, and a lot of people probably don't agree with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what I found. What I found is, okay, first of all, most of what happens is, you figure it. Look at the governments and religions; they preach love. That's the first thing everybody's going to preach, and then they practice hate, because we have wars and we have famine. We've got all this, and there's enough money to go around to feed everybody. There's enough medical care to take care of everybody, because we've got people that are always willing to help. People in general are good. People are there. They want a good society. They want everybody to be, somewhat happy or taken care of. And, we would be good. But we have factions in our society. And first of all, if you run the government, if you run different societies, if you run different religions, if you run this, you have the ability to, our corporations, what you can do is you have the ability to change, to to manipulate what happens in life. And that's why we have so many wars and that sort of thing. So and then I also say, if we have so many psychics in the world that have access to the spiritual realm, if the spiritual realm was really good, think of this one simple thing. We have 460,000 missing children in the just United States every year. That's every year. Okay. Why do we have almost 500,000? And why aren't the psychics out there finding them left and right? Why isn't the spirit realm? The spirit realm was not good. It never was good. It is good at one thing. It's manipulation. Manipulation filters down into our regular life. All the things that happen in our regular life is manipulation. It keeps you, this is your comfort zone. You've built this comfort zone. You built it on programming. And what you do is you feel safe in there. And if somebody says something outside of that, outside of your safety zone, you revert back into your comfort zone because you want to hear things that support your belief. You don't want to hear things that don't support it because you feel threatened at that point, because that is part of the game. The game is to keep you enthralled. It keeps you uh, uh, hoping. It keeps you going towards empty goals. It keeps you working every day. It keeps you mentally occupied so that you don't think of things like this, so that you can somehow step out of what's happening and look from outside.
Okay. There's an entire spiritual industry built on like spirit guides, manifestation, law of attraction. Like you're saying that all that is part of the game.
Well, the first time I saw the law of attraction, okay, it's been renamed for, there used to be books called Think Yourself Rich. Okay. All that stuff, I would say that stuff comes from the ancient times. It's snake oil, pure snake oil. It does create money for the author. It's been sold under different names as far back as I remember when I was a kid. I would saw that Think Yourself Rich and all these different things. This has been going on for decades or for eons. It's a scam, okay? And anybody who tells you, you know, that you're going to be able, oh, and the spirit guides. Okay, we'll go into that. The spirit guides. The spirit guides are there. It's part of the whole spiritual realm. When you enter that realm, or if you have access to it, you mentally go on there like some of the psychics, it's going to tell you what you want to hear, and it's going to manipulate you so that you follow the agenda. Most of the time, these psychics go on there and they get fed this information.
But okay? Was there a battle then of good and evil and good lost? Like what is this place? Like why have all this? Why and then why aren't you freaking out about it?
Well, that stage is gone. It's long gone. But when I look at things, I've always worked in the technical field. For me, it's like I see a challenge, then my idea is to meet that challenge. I have to figure out a solution for that challenge. And what I used to do many times is if I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I've accessed all the information on this problem, but I can't figure it out. So I would put it out there. I'd say, okay, if you've got an answer, let me know. And sometimes it might not be for a while, and sometimes it might be pretty quick. And I would get an answer. It wouldn't say like, okay, put wire A to wire B. It would say, this is, like it'll give me a solution based upon the knowledge that I already had. So if I was going to ask a question about something related to like, I don't know, electronics, I would have to have a background in electronics to understand what the answer would be, because it's not just going to tell me exactly what to do. I would get a plain answer and I would do it. So what I would do is once I had that question, I presented it. I had all the background information around it so that when I received an answer, I could put it to use. I understood it. So years ago, I put this answer: what can we do to to help ourselves out of the situation of being basically cattle? They're the predators, we're the prey. So I did get a solution. I think it was back in December, and I just happened to be taking a shower and I got it, and I said, okay, I'm going to put it to use. And the only reason I was able to put it to use is because I spent so much time trying to figure out, if I got an answer, how would I do I have enough background data? Have I thought about it enough? So what I did was, during this whole time, I also, when I was back in the early 80s, I checked out Kundalini yoga. There's a lot of things I tried because I figured I'd cover all the bases. And I was into the metaphysical for a long time, and I got out of it because I knew it was snake oil. I figured out it was snake oil. So, um, I learned to move the energy within my body based upon what I learned from the Kundalini yoga. I didn't do a lot of meditation, but it happened, and then after that, I could kind of, I could kind of control it at some point, or at least initiate it. So over the years, I've been working with that. And so when I was having that experience with those dark ones in my dreams, I could feel the energy come up. So I knew that's what they wanted me to do. So I was able to sustain that and kind of push it down so that I wouldn't release that in order for obviously for what they wanted. So when I got the answer was, instead of giving them your energy, why don't you take that back? Because I know that a electric motor can um, utilize energy when it's doing work, or it can act as a generator, or it can consume it. It can either consume or expel energy or utilize energy. So why don't I take energy back from those beings? So I utilize the glimpse state to go into there and access some of those levels that I knew the beings were going to be at. And I practiced, and I had to figure out how to do it. I was utilizing like tentacles and stuff like that to connect to them and pull the energy back through them. Well, that became unpopular very quickly with them. And then eventually I couldn't access any of them because there was no way to see them, you know? And I thought to myself, I'm not sure this is really going to work. I don't know how people are going to do it. So eventually I came up with a process and I shared it on my channel called The Solution, followed it with the plan, and then I followed it with the execution. But that is one way that we can help ourselves. My idea is not to sit there and battle people. I'm not going to sit there and try to go, well, you can't win at their game. You can't win in the game of life. You cannot win. You have to beat them. So what we have to do is become the prey and make them the predator. And that's what I've pushed myself to do. And that's the standard that I set for myself is now I'm the prey and they are the predator. You have to switch the scenario.
I mean, you're the predator, they're the prey.
Yep. You have to flip the script on them, because that's the only way that you can beat the game. And at that point, we have control of the system.
What happens when you beat the game? Do we break down the fences and the cattle roam free? What
As I go through this process, I learn more and more. So I have to update things. But for somebody who's just sitting there and hasn't been exposed to it, for them, it's going to be like completely ultra impossible. They're going to think, well, this is just stupid because it's not going to happen. But when you've dedicated yourself to all this time and doing it, then it becomes completely, and also understanding. First, you have to see yourself as the way things are really happening around you. If you never, if you never look from the outside and see how the system is working around you, then you'll never understand it, and you'll never be on board because it just, you know, it's a big step, but it's the reality of our situation. Whether we like it or not, or whether we want to accept it or not, it's still the same thing. It's still going to be the same.
So should people be careful with out of body experiences then, or do you think it's key?
No,
It's key to seeing the truth. It's
what I
key to
think, what
seeing.
I what I think is out of body experiences. It's good to be able to have the ability to do it, because what I've always said is the value is in the connection. If you have the ability to make a connection beyond the physical, there's value in that. That's more valuable than any experience you're going to get beyond that. What's going to happen is if you go onto the 13 levels, the astral, any of them, what you're most likely going to get, you'll get experience, but most likely if you see any other beings or get any information, it's going to be, it's not going to be usable. Because I tell people are so excited when they get on the astral, I go or make a connection beyond that. They're just going to automatically accept it. It's like, would you go to New York because if you've never been there, and believe everything everybody said on the street just because you think it's a great place? No. I tell everybody, every being everywhere, whether it's human or not, has their own agenda. And if you don't, you'll never know what that agenda is. So take everything you receive or hear with a grain of salt, because they're always going to portray the bright and shiny, sunrise above the water, and everything looks great. But once you get down inside the water, it's a different story. So, and that's why I've spent so much time. I mean, what, 35 years now doing this, and I do it still so that I can figure out more of what's happening around us.
Okay, so how does this relate to the 3 bodies? Is my spirit and soul also in this trapped in this?
Right. So, okay, first of all, we're conscious energy. We have no mass, we have no body. Okay. So we're trapped within a low frequency um, physical system. So the 3 bodies are a prison, and the subconscious is the conductor that oversees it all. It's the warden of the prison yard. So when people leave Earth and go to the astral, they think they've escaped when they're still in the prison yard, because it's full of um, beings. And when the beings are there, those non-physical beings can portray themselves in any form. They could be your grandma, they could be Jesus, whatever you desire to see, because they have access to your, some people call them Akashic records, whatever the records are.
But why are they there?
They are there as to manipulate you, to keep you on the same page. Okay, first of all, if the astral was a spiritual realm, okay, this great spiritual realm, you could go there and access how to have free energy, how to make world peace, how to save the children. I mean, you could think of all the things that a spiritual realm would have information to that make our world better. Isn't that the whole idea of spiritual realm? Isn't that the idea of it? It's like, oh, well, if these are angels and stuff, then they should be able to help us do all this stuff. You won't find any help. You won't find anything that's going to take us out of this mess. Nobody's going to help. Like I said, aliens, nobody's here to save us, because we're on our own. We're out here. You're trapped. You're on your own. It's up to us. If you want to get out of this, you got to do it yourself.
So when I die, like this body here, I go back up to the astral level, and then I think that I'm like, for example, if I were to die yesterday before meeting you, not saying I'm buying I mean, I gotta think about these things, Mike. However, you're very convincing and you seem very confident. But when I die, based on what yesterday, it was like, okay, I would go up and I would meet my guides, right? And we would be like, how did you do? You'd get a life review and you'd be like, man, you did some things good. You did some things like could have been better. And then you either plan a new life or you don't. Would I actually experience that because that's what I want to experience? And then I would just dick around up there until I feel like, all right, I want to do another life.
I don't.
But
I can't tell you what the exact process is when you die. Um, I'm sure it could be somewhat similar to what the NDEs say. I'm sure there are beings there to meet you. And what some people have always said that, well, I can just always tell them, I don't agree. I don't want to go back into it. And this is what I tell them. I become really good at becoming aware of my dreams, really good becoming conscious of my dreams. But every time I progress, or I seem to progress, they one up me. So what happens is, so like I'm in a dream, and I can be manipulated within that dream easier than I thought I could be. And what I believe that whole purpose behind it is, it's like, okay, you get better at this, and we'll just show you a little bit more of what you can't do. So what it does is it shows me bit by bit that the better I get, I'm not that good, because they can still do the same thing. So I tell people, if you're going to this situation and say you're completely lucid, and they want you to agree to something, if you have to, I don't know if there's an agreement there. I said, they have the ability to create an illusion that's going to put you in a drug light state, and you're going to say yes to anything because you'll agree to it. Because when you're in a dream, if you'll realize that there's times where you wake up and you go, man, I haven't seen that person in years. I don't like them. I would never let them in my house, but somehow in my dream, they had full run of my house. How does that happen? And you have to think to yourself, it's because you were manipulated in your dream. And they can do that. And they show you. And then you have to try to figure it out. But that's the thing. When you're in their game, the manipulation level is beyond where you could go.
But can't because when I hear this, it does, at least from my perspective, right, or ours, it seems very negative, right? It seems very dark, very, you use
Right.
terms like your prison, all that. But wouldn't that imply then that there's, because of contrast, or am I just thinking about this wrong? But wouldn't there be another side that is technically, that wants to free the cattle, and or is that people like Jesus coming down and trying to explain things and we fuck it all up? Or am I still thinking like in, like, what, it can't just all be that, can it?
Yeah. See, okay, so we're taught, you got good and bad, you got up and down, you got right and left, you got all this stuff. This is all physical. This is completely physical. Once you leave this, there is none of that. And that's what people have a hard time understanding, because when you're in this state, when I'm here, I cannot not notice time. I cannot not notice space. But yet when I'm there, it's just a given. So I can tell you I can tell you all of this, but if you don't have really your own experience, okay, unless I drum it into your head 24/7, like all the information has been drummed into you, I cannot be successful. But if you at one time experience something, now think about this. When you're in a dream, do you experience time? No, you won't experience time, but you don't realize that, because in that state you realize it, but when you're out of that state, you don't realize it. So that's the same kind of thing. There's things that unless you have memory of them, are willing to accept that memory of them, experience, you won't understand. Sometimes what I say is, if you haven't experienced it, then you won't, then you can't, uh, then you'll never lose that. But if you haven't experienced it, then there's no way you can understand. So I tell people the only way that sometimes they can really understand something is through personal experience. And if you don't put yourself out there, then you're never going to experience that. Because for me, I could not really believe in astral projection until I was able to control and experience it myself. At that point, I was like, I proved it, because I'm the type of person that I have to have proof of something in order for me to believe it. I have to experience things to really believe. If somebody says, yeah, it's really cool to backflip a motorcycle. Well, I've never done it before. I'm sure it would be cool, but probably never going to happen. But there's things that you really have to experience for yourself. But the first thing you need to do is to realize that not everything you've been taught is reality. It's the perceived reality, but it's not your reality, because everything that we pretty much learn in life is coming from somebody else's experiences, not from yours. And once you break away and you start to experience things or think about those things, like question, why does 2 + 2 = 4? Or question whatever. If math is your forte, then question things. But like with this, got a lot of experience in it, a lot of time. And so this is where I'm at. And I put the information out. But I do know out of 8 billion people on this planet, I probably will maybe only connect with, I don't know, a couple thousand, if that, if I'm lucky. It's because for the common person or the person that doesn't have any belief in this, just gonna kind of wish it off. And some people that have either some belief in it and might look into it a little bit and then leave, and then there's only going to be a very small percentage of people that are probably um ever really going to take it seriously enough.
Why would you, right? Because it's so gross. Like, you're almost better off just either not knowing and playing the game. Because here, like, for example, I have a family, I have 2 daughters, and I experienced love, right? I get to, a lot of good moments, a lot of hard moments, but a lot of good moments, right? And then I think about, like, all right, well, if what you're saying is true, then that just sounds like a shitty existence, because then you go up and then you know you're trapped and then you come back down and you still know you're trapped. It's like, I'd rather believe that I go meet my guides, because if I don't know anyways and I'm trapped either way, it's like, you might as well, you're better off not knowing. Or am I wrong? Unless you can get out. Unless you can get out, I don't even see now what the point of even wanting to know
That's
that would be.
that's why I offered the solution. That was my whole purpose behind the solution. Because like I said, I'm the type of person I know what all of our problems are, not all of them, but I know what our problems are, but who's out there offering solutions? Hardly, if any. So that's what I said. Okay, now, so my job is to offer a solution to our problem. If we work on it, that gives us a fighting chance. But if we don't, then there's absolutely no opportunity for it. So, I mean, I'm not pushing the solution on anybody. If people decide they want to do it, I will help them, the system in any way. That's what I'm here for. But if they decide not to, which I know most won't, that's up to them. But you have to think about it this way. I mean, you said you have people that in your family you love. I have the same thing. And most likely, even if you decided to go along with this, your family's not going to be on board. And that's just the way things work. So, I mean, I work on things myself but my job, and I'm not the only person that's ever said this. I'm not the only person that's ever come to some of these conclusions, but
Now, David Icke, right, has a similar
right. And you know what?
mindset.
I would say the great thing about David Icke is he is the type of guy that can figure out all the physical connections. And that's what's great. He's the physical guy. Spiritually or on the other side of the veil, he doesn't really have much experience, so some of his stuff is a little bit different. I'm on the other side of it. He's done all the legwork on the physical side. I don't work on that. I work on the other side of it. But I also see what's going on this side of it. So I have to work from both sides, but I'm more on the other side and he's on this side. So, you've got people that work in different areas. But my thing is, I think the biggest thing is there is so much misinformation out there purposefully to reroute people down these dead end paths. So eventually they just get tired of it and say, "Pff, I'm just going to go do something else because, there's, I'm being led in all these erroneous directions."
So the solution is to become the predator, is what you're saying, by not giving, not reacting, basically,
Right. Well,
right? Like
first,
when
like what I go through in the Spiritualist Manifesto, it's very important. First, you have to kind of get yourself on board to get yourself in control. Now, it seems very simple to be in control of your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions. But walk into a room and let somebody say something to you, and and it's easy to get triggered. Most people will get triggered in a moment, and that's how things work. And that's how we've been trained because every time you have a thought, a feeling, or an emotion, energy is released. We're creating energy. That's the whole purpose behind everything. It's like we're constantly, if your mind won't shut down, if you're constantly emotionally charged, or you got feelings flying all over the place, you're just feeding the system constantly. And people wonder why they're drained. But that's it. You have to be in control of yourself. Once you begin to get control, you think about what you're feeling, think about what your emotions are, and be in control of your thoughts. Then you become in control of yourself. Because think about it too. You sleep 8 hours every night. You're not in control during that time. So there's a third of your day, a third of your life right there that you're not in control of yourself. So when you're awake, you should be in control of yourself. You'd be in control of every portion of it because once you begin to get that control, then you can see how things affect you around you. And then you can begin to get in control of it. So if you go to the store and the parking lot's full and you start getting aggravated, there it is right there. You're triggering, you're allowing that to trigger you. People say that other people don't have control of them. Yet if somebody says something that you don't like, they've just taken control over you because you become triggered by what they said or by what they did. So people are so out of control and that's called drama. And that's been acceptable and promoted through our society forever. Because that right there, I mean, if war and conflict and everything uh wasn't a trigger for us, then we wouldn't have them.
100%. Okay, but when I think of like a bully, for example, and they always tell you like don't react to the bully, right? Like when you react, that fuels them and it makes them. That's what they teach you, right? It's kind of a similar thing. It's like don't either stand up to them, don't be scared. But isn't the next step of that to actually show them love? Like wouldn't that be like like there's not reacting, which is one thing, but then to also turn and say, look, I see you. I see that you're hurting. Something's going on with you that's making you do this. And that act of love it's a reaction, but it's one that often diffuses even more than just non-reaction. So what is your thoughts on love? Is that also part of the equation of getting out? Like, is there a situation where no matter how shitty your life is, like you see it all the time, or maybe not all the time, but there's an example of a woman. I just heard it on a podcast where this man he killed two of her daughters or something like that, and she was able to forgive him, right? And that sort of act of love and forgiveness of like, does that have any merit? Like, does that carry weight just as much as, I guess, fear would feel something? Have you been able to see anything like that? Are you certain that love has no play in this? Because love
Well,
seems like one of those things that would, if there's any hope, it would be in LOVE.
well, i- we can also interpret karma into this too, but I'm not saying don't love people. I mean, yeah, we're all going to have feelings for our family and our children and that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm not saying don't have that.
I know you're not saying that. I'm more curious on why, like, if that
I'm
has a
saying is you're not going to be able to walk up to some guy who's ready to shoot some people and give him love and it's going to stop it. There's no way that you can control like other people utilizing that type of theory. What we're taught, I would say, um, if left alone and not controlled under a situation, we would have successful, great societies. If we didn't have this third party issue, I think things would be great, but that's not happening. It's never been like that. No matter how much love you portray, it's still going to be the same. So we're taught to be docile and to be loving and that sort of thing, which is great. That makes for a great society. People care about each other. They want to help each other. That whole thing is great. But what happens is we're in a game. We're in a game and we have, laws and rules and everything else. All of that is for us. Okay. The ones in charge, the politicians and everything like that. And you'll see this all the time. They don't follow the rules. We're expected to be docile, loving, and follow the rules, yet they do what they want. And we see it and we yell, hey, no, no, you can't do that. But they do it. They keep doing it because they know that those method of laws and rules are meant for us. We're meant to be loving and caring and forgiving. So, like I said, they preach love and they practice hate. And that's what happens to us. And they also give you laws of karma. And they say karma, well, if you do good things are going to happen to you. If you do bad things are going to happen to you. But if you look at the other side, you think, wow, they're all doing all bad stuff and nothing bad's happening to them. It's because if you run a game, if you have a game and you have all these rules for your opponent, yet the rules don't apply to you, who's going to win every time? The ones without the rules. If you make up a game and your opponent has to follow the rules and you don't, who's going to win every time? That's how the game's played. That's how it's always played. There's the illusion of things maybe happening on the other side that they're going to pay for it, but it never happens that way. So we're in a game where we're going to lose every single time. I don't care how much love you show towards the opponent, how much caring you show. It's always going to end up the same for us. And when you die, all this stuff doesn't come down. They go, oh, yeah, well, you were a good guy, so you're going to get a better life. Well, yeah, your better life, it ends up being you're back here. I mean, and right now, you have a family and you want maybe a nicer house and some nicer cars and that sort of thing, and you work hard. But every time you get to the pinnacle of that goal, if you ever do, it never seems to be as good as what you imagined. It's always an empty. It's an it's just an
For sure.
empty
Yeah.
success. It never is, and that's what it is. We're meant to follow these goals. We're meant to just set all these goals and in hopes that it's going to be better. Oh well, the next time it's going to be better. Oh yeah, it's going to be better next time. You get to the next one, still not the same. It's we're following this game that's going to keep feeding us the same junk over, and we keep falling for it. Oh, I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow. Okay, yeah, right. Okay. And then you just keep trying and keep trying. You get more depressed. You get more aggravated. You get it's a never-ending cycle.
Okay, so I love these conversations. I really do. And I'm not pushing back in any way. I'm just saying where my brain goes. So like,
No,
and
say
you
what
have
you
a
gotta
you
say. I mean, I
and
can
you have a ton of experience. So my head goes, okay, so if this is a game, like in the way you're saying, the cattle maybe isn't a perfect reference, right? Because cattle aren't like fucking popping out in their dreams and like showing up to me like, oh shit, or like unlocking the gate. And I'm like, oh damn, they're figuring it out. I got to create a better gate. We have an ability, it seems like, to pop out, like you said, you kind of like as you progress and you're trying to maybe dupe them, they go, all right, Mike's getting a little squirmy. Let's let's put him back down. Like it almost implies that there is some way out because we're not just cattle because we can. And if it was just fear, there's a lot of ways to scare people that could just be this. That if you have the power, for example, to just erase our memories, why go through all this? Like, why not just have us wake up and be like, "Fuck, it's on fire," and you're just scared, 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 scared. You die, you go back, and you just pure fear. Like, I don't see the need to even have opportunity, even if you're to say, "Well, it keeps you engaged longer." But if it's fear that fuels us, or they feels them, why not just be a terrifying world? And you could argue that there are lives that are terrible. Don't get me wrong, but there is this other element where it's like, why not just do that? You know
well,
what I mean?
I've been close enough to him enough times where I could kinda feel what's going on, but, you
Can they
know,
hurt you, Mike? When you get close to them, can they
no, they're it's non-physical, there's nothing there. It mostly is fear-based, but the thing is, I mean, I'm gonna liken it to obviously we have serial killers, people that have killed in the past and have made it a life of that. Now, if you take that into perspective about how twisted a mind might be, or they take pleasure in dismembering people or something of that nature, you have to wonder where that comes from. Well, when you're in the midst of what's going on is there's a total emptiness there. And I would say it's about it's about the success. It's like if you enjoy torturing people or things, then it wouldn't be just be in the outcome, it would be in the process. So I think a lot of it has to do with the process of like, wow, watch what I do this time. Or this isn't this great? Aren't we like masters? And they are masters of manipulation. But I believe they do take some type of enjoyment over their job. Like if you were an artist and you were really into your painting, like you're all into it. And every time you create a work of art, you're just so proud of it because it's taken something from you. And I believe this whole process to them is a form of art more than just a purpose. It's a form of art. So it's like when you go on a long vacation, it's not just getting to that destination. It's what you see and experience along that that travel.
Sure, yeah.
And I believe for them, it has to do with, I mean, I can't say for everything, but from what I gather, it's an experience. And I think and part of the experience is what they gain from it.
Who made them?
I I have no idea.
And then if there's them, right, is there more thems, you think?
I
Like,
think there's I think there's
like
other beings that are probably participating in it.
what I don't mean just participating, like, if there's a cattle farmer, right, then there's someone totally unrelated who's a plumber. You know what I mean? Like, is there if they're here and this is their thing. And then can I ask you this? And I know you don't have the answer, I'm just curious. How did they get me? Whether I'm in one of these 3 bodies, but, like, how did they round me up into this in the cattle example?
I've gotten that question a lot of times, and I can't answer that. Um, my my whole thought process on that is lure and trap. Somehow lured and trapped. But like for me, I've been more focusing on our situation, gathering as much information surrounding it, and trying to keep up with how it's happening and the solution, and trying to find different versions of it so that it'll help people more to help out, and trying to find other avenues to be on the attack. I mean, to be a predator. So the whole thing is it's a very involved process, but I mean, I lay it out clearly for people, but I'm always working on it because I wanna find out it's not good enough for me to have, like, one way to do things. I like to have as many possible tools in my toolkit to use to try to do things in a different manner, and that's what I'm focusing on. Plus, like we all are, we're all living our lives here simultaneously, so it's not like I don't have 100% of my time. I have to do other things as well. So I'm working on it as I live my life. And when I tell people is, if you're going to be anywhere to hack a system or destroy a system, it's always from within is the best place to be. And that's where we are. So this is probably our best opportunity to be able to do it.
And I wondered, like, do you think that you have a time limit? Meaning, like, all right, this is your life, Mike, but if you die, you will forget again, and then you'll have to do it all over again. You'll have to
Oh,
somehow
I'm
wake
sure.
up.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be back in the time limit.
Then, Mike, can you just go all in for us, please? Because I want you to just figure it out, man. If this is true, Mike, I, I need you to sacrifice everything else and please become the savior because
What,
this
what,
is insane.
well, I tell everybody, I'm not here to speak for everybody. To I'm here to light a fire under everybody's ass if they're not already moving on it. I want to get people um, to be independent, think independently, base your understanding on personal experiences. But you have to remember, there's a lot of manipulation. So what I say is, if if you have a big pothole in the street, the truth will be at the bottom of the pothole, and it'll be covered up with many layers of lies. So you have to get to the reality of the truth at the bottom. But what we're doing is, I want people to be independent thinkers, and I want them to understand that if you're relying on anybody but yourself, then that's your first fault. You have to rely on yourself, and you have to go within. When you go within, however it works for you, through visualization, through meditation, whatever works for you, but quiet yourself. Get in control of yourself. I'm here to support people to become individuals, not following politics, not following politicians, not following corporations, not following all these people that are going to mislead you. People are that if somebody tells you to rely on them, it's bullshit. It's fake. It's snake oil. Don't do it. Follow yourself. And I'm just here to help people, maybe give them some tools that'll help them along their path. But if you don't start on your path, you're never going to get anywhere. I didn't follow anybody. I just used some information to get me to start on my path, and then once I was there, then I spent decades by myself just trying to figure it out. I didn't have anybody to turn for answers. I mean, I'm giving people information that I never had before in my life, you know? So this is not just, something I'm repeating from somebody else. This is experience. And experience is the only true form of that you're going to get truth if you really apply yourself.
Why do you think they don't shut this shit down then? Like you and me having this convo, this would seem like a pretty sketch thing to be happening.
Well, first of all, here I am. I'm a guy that doesn't, I mean, if I had 2 million followers, that might be something different, but I don't, I mean, and the way the system's set up is people are going to, like I said, they're in the comfort zone. Most people aren't going to go straight far from their comfort zone. So the amount of people that are probably really going to intentionally listen and apply themselves is going to be very small.
But I would argue, but just like you just said, it's all about experience, right? So there's a lot of people starting to teach out of body experiences. And so I think that right
Yeah.
there is the key, right? It's like people are starting to realize like, oh shit, you can actually do this stuff.
Right,
Um,
but out of body experiences is not going to teach you anything.
but
Out
it's
of
at,
body
but
experience,
it's at least a crack in the door, right? Because if you do that, you're like, all right, what the fuck? There's got to be other stuff going on here. Like it definitely, I would argue, like at least I agree with you. You're saying that you'll go out and then based on what you believe, you will see that. So it might
if
not trigger.
I've listened to quite a few through the years.
Have you listened to Darius J. Wright,
Yeah, I've heard them.
where he says he like goes out, there's a construct. Like, what do you think of that whole? Because he seems like he's not telling, like he's not lying.
Well, this is what I have to say. He's related. He has a correlation with the large um, corporate endeavor, Gaia, I think it's called. Anybody who's got the corporate backing like that, and you can tell right now, once you're owned by a corporation, you're going to be spouting exactly. There's a lot out there, and what happens is that corporation wants to be in control of all the content. Once they are, they control the agenda. There's a lot of corporations doing that stuff. So not going to be popular for saying that, but you have to look at things. If somebody comes out and they just start to come out and all of a sudden they're on all the big talk shows and all the interviewers and they got high amount of viewers and they got good AI content and you got people behind you, you got some money, and that just doesn't happen with a homegrown person that's got a lot of experience and without all the backing. So you have to choose your paths. You have to be very picky. And when you have stuff like that, yeah, it's because there's a lot of people that are either going to just get into it for the money and they're just going to put out content. They have no experience, or they're going to do it based upon how much money they're getting paid. So that's the reality of the situation. The system will support a lot of it because they want to funnel everybody into their belief system. It keeps everybody on track. So, and the money's there. So that's what I think about it. I've seen it. It's this
Have you
what when I first started, I used to get books from Llewellyn and a bunch of other companies, and they had stupid things like astral sex and stuff in there. Really, they had stuff like that, and it was just plain dumb. And if you've ever been around and you've ever seen anything, you would know they're just selling books. And corporations are in it for the cash. So whatever you put in there, they're good to go.
have you had any experiences like what NDE people talk about or or other OB people of like this mass, I guess, euphoria, love? Like, have you experienced anything like that when you're on the other side?
No, because like I said, when I go over there, the astral and astral is very like a small part of what I go through. Most of it's the alternate realities and the other dimensions, which there's no body there. There's no feelings. There's no emotions. There's no connection with it because I'm there. When you're there, you're all there. You're in the space. You're connected with that, and there's no way to explain because there's no chatter. There's no there's no judgment. There's no anything of that nature. You're there as a pure individual. Once you start to involve feelings and emotions and stuff, you're connected with the body. Those are physical attributes that are connected to us through that three body system. It's crap. We don't normally have that stuff because if you're gonna have somebody you want to control, feelings, thoughts, and emotions are the first way that you can control them. Of course, you got to control them through they need food, they need water, they need all these things. You control people through their needs. Once you create somebody who's dependent, they lose their independence and you can control them.
Okay. So for you, what's the end goal here? Are you want to keep spreading this as much as you can? At least that and keep working on the solution. Like you said, it's kind of ongoing. It's not like you have one
Yeah,
solution, but
I'm working. I make videos all the time. I got my channel, my YouTube channel, my dark explorations. I do it all the time. I'm always working on it. I've got, I send the information out, I get feedback, and I just keep going. I mean, that's all I can do at this point. I mean, like I said, I'm not forcing people to do anything, to accept anything. It's completely up to them. But, and most of the people are not going to accept this because it falls outside of there. And once you decide to step out of your comfort zone, then you'll take a look. But even then, some people won't step outside their comfort zone that far to try to even uh accept it at all.
I
I've been
almost
doing this for 3 years, so
no, I hear you. I mean, I would consider myself decently open minded. Um, I almost it's not that I don't. It's almost like I just don't want to accept it because I don't see the point in accepting it because otherwise it's like, well, If we're just trapped, if that's true, then I'm like, damn. It's just that I might as well spend my time, you know what I mean, believing that there is positive things and try to be a better person and love because I think those things are real. Like you can experience, for example, gratitude in a day and and like really feel that and be like, wow. And whether it's just keeping me here or not, I guess again, the caveat is like unless you can get out and that getting out is better than being in this, then
Well,
it's like, all right,
if
it
you've
should be
if
all for
if
that.
you've been out and you had the experiences, then you would understand. So let me say it this way: if you were born in a prison and you lived your life in a prison, and then they let you out and you were free, you would most likely want to go back to the prison because you felt more
Mhm.
comfortable there.
Yeah, you hear that all the
And
time, right, with convicts, all the time.
that's where we are right now. You've been let out for just so you've been able to see what's out there, but because it's out of your comfort zone, you don't you don't feel comfortable there because it's the unknown. Once you see the unknown, then you're like, okay, yeah, no, I feel more comfortable here. It's like Stockholm syndrome. That's basically what it is. It's Stockholm syndrome in essence.
Okay, well, I gotta tell you, this is one of the more fascinating conversations I've had. You freak me out a little bit.
Well, it's
Give me
all
a lot
about
to think about.
when okay, so when people say waking up, what do they really what do they envision in waking up? It's like, okay, well, when people first saw The Matrix, sometimes people would kind of freak out and, but they say, well, it's okay because it's just a movie. But when they hear things that are not related or not Hollywood related, then it doesn't make them feel comfortable. But that's part of the whole thing. It's like I said, that's why it's called the comfort zone. And the more you stay within it, the more you won't leave. Like I said, the longer you live in that prison, the longer you'll fight getting out of there.
Okay, would you come on for round 2?
Sure.
Okay. I think we should do this. I wanna keep talking to you.
Okay.
I have a
Well, come up with
1,000 more
questions. I mean,
questions.
I'm sure you'll have a million questions at the end of the day or at the end of
Oh,
the week.
yeah. Dude, by it's 103, by 110, I'm gonna have a lot more. All right, Mike. Well, I sincerely appreciate you coming on here. I'm excited to continue our conversation. I'm gonna link everything down below for your YouTube. Anything else you want me to link? Your books,
I've
Amazon
got
books?
I have books on Amazon
Okay.
that are kind of go
I'll
beyond
link
that.
those
So,
as well. Anything else? What is anything else you wanna leave the audience with?
um, some people that I that find my channel are like, yeah, I've been thinking this for a long time. I really, I'm in tune with this. It rings true for me. Um, and some people are, want to argue, which is fine. I mean, I understand that because at some point I was where everybody is at right now. I was really into the metaphysical, I really bought into it. And then eventually once I saw what was going on, then I had to break apart from it. And everybody goes through phases. It's just, it's wherever you're at. I've been there. I've been in that situation. I understand. I'm not trying to rain on your parade or ruin your life. I'm just trying to make information available because at some point in our lives or our existence, you're going to wish that you had information. And most people really won't react to anything until it gets to a point where it's beyond sustainable. And then they say, why? Well, what can I do now? Well, you waited too long. If you draw the line at your front door, then you've waited too long because by the time whatever gets to your front door, then you've waited too long. So as we always say, think ahead, try to plan ahead so that you know, um, that you're prepared for things that happen. And if you look at our world today, whether I don't care who's in power, I don't care who's the president, I don't care anything, nothing, don't take any of that into consideration. Just see that. Where are we? I mean, how many hungry people do we have? I mean, what is the state? Why is it like this? But how come every time you turn on the news, that same problem is reoccurring? Nobody ever fixes anything. You won't if the way that most corporations and governments fix problems is by making the problems worse. That's the purpose behind it. We're living in a lie and we're being told that it's the truth. If you start to see breaks in our reality that are really lies, If you start to follow what's really going on, not what the news says, don't go by the news. Go by what the reality of the situation is. Because a lot of us, we all have our own jobs and we have our own connections with information. And we all can find breaks in the system where there lies, but we tend to just overlook those because it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the grand scheme of things. We want to have a good life, so we don't want to make waves. So people overlook that, and all these little things that you're overlooking all build up. And if you start to put them together, you start to see that we've built a foundation of truth on a marsh of lies. We're always, we've got so many lies that we've been told throughout our entire programming that we've just accepted them. Just because somebody else said it. Oh, he's an expert. He said it has to be true. I've never proved it, but it has to be true because this guy said it or this lady said it. That's what we build. We build our truth on lies. They practice love. They preach love and they practice hate. This is what's been going on forever. They want you to funnel you into that same dark pit.
I think when I hear this today, it's like, all right, the common denominator for me is experience. Because either you, me, anyone listening, like I was listening to a podcast the other day of this guy named Cliff, and he was talking about he's a big Jesus guy on YouTube right now, and he was talking to an atheist, and he was saying that he had this experience when he was like 12 or something. I don't remember, but it was like he met Jesus, right, and that was a powerful experience to him. You can't take that away. So no matter what you say to that guy, right, he's gonna be like, I don't care what you say. I had this experience, and it was all love, and it was oneness, and I got shown whatever he was shown. And then you go to the ND person and they're like, dude, I don't care what you say. This is what happened for me. And then you're like, I don't care what you guys say. This is what's happened to me. This is what I'm seeing and experiencing. And it's just fascinating. It's like all these things. The message, because someone like you, and again, take this with a super grain of salt. Obviously you're passionate about helping. You want to help people. I feel that from you. It's like why you're writing books and stuff and you want to like talk about it because you've had hundreds. I haven't met anyone who's had hundreds of these experiences. I think it's not comfort zone that keeps people away from this. I think it's the fact that it's like buying into like I said, like I've been trying to, I guess, maybe I'm not saying it correctly, probably not, but it's like buying into something that has no upside. So it's like, why would anyone want to buy into that? Unless, like I said, you're working on the solution and there's a way out. And if that way out is better than here, then people will buy into it. But until that happens, I feel like everyone's just gonna be like, oh, that's too fucking scary. I don't wanna like they're just gonna that's scary. Because that's how I feel. I'm like, oh man, but I think when I hear you talk, Mike, I'm like, man, there's a lot of it too that definitely I don't know. It's very interesting. And that's why I have
Well,
this podcast. It's very interesting.
yeah, and like I said, it's not just the experiences because when I was there, you kind of you take in what's going on around you. And like I said, I didn't make any determinations based upon what was happening. I went back and I read them based upon my experiences down the line so I could start to put things together. No, at no point did anybody just come out and tell me this. Nobody is. Every time you're there, you're not going to get pertinent information, good or bad. You're going to get generalized information. The only really red flags that I had was one time they told me, well, several times, they said, we know you're using these portals. We can show you how to keep them open. That's the first red flag. If you're going to show me how to keep them open and they're utilizing my energy, oh, that's bad news. And plus, if you can't open them, why would you try to help me keep them open? There's just things that happen, little tiny things that you have to keep in mind that happen throughout it. But just the simple fact is when you're accessing different places far beyond us, they know who I am. They can see who I am. What I see of them is most likely a portrayed image and a background So, like, it's like me inviting them to a Hollywood set, and I'm a rich guy with a big old house, they're gonna see that and they're gonna be like, "Oh, yeah, it was just some rich guy, and he told me how to make money because I can believe him because he's a rich guy with a big old house, and he had a Ferrari right there. He has to be truthful." Well, that's what happens when people go, they see this image, these images of what they want to accept, and then they that's what they but see, I don't
Yeah, you're
feed
not
on it.
questioning that.
Right, I'm not.
I totally
Right.
understand that.
Yeah, I see that, and I take in for what it is, and then I move on because but there's no at no point is anybody telling you anything based upon your situation or how to make your situation better or how to make Earth better. And none of these spirit guides are offering one little bit of how to make your this place better. That makes it it's not spiritual. It's on the opposite end of the spectrum because information to make this place better should be pouring out of there through all these psychics, through all these people making connections, through all these people on the astral. It should be pouring in buckets from there, and we're getting nothing. It's because it's meant to be that way. And when people say, "Oh yeah, we're just here to learn. We're just here to learn and if you can't experience when you experience pain, you got to experience good and all this kind of stuff." Okay, how many millions of times do you have to die of cancer or see people suffer in front of you? Or how many wars do we have to have? It got to the point where it's like, okay, you could probably go through 5 lifetimes and experience exactly everything you need and you're out of here. But no, you're not here to learn. You're here to produce. That old age-old thing as we are one and all this other stuff, that's all that's all to sell the prisoner ways to keep him in the prison without having to think about it. When you're not if you had questioned your situation, then you would be like trying to find ways out. But if everybody tells you, "Oh no, you're here because you wanted to be and you're all this, but you can't remember because we erased your memory because you don't want to remember because you want to be able to do all this." That is the biggest lie because if you're going to capture somebody, you want the docile creature that believes. I mean, we're people that believe we're supposed to be here. And we thank them for 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 all the violence and all the torture. We're like going, "Oh yeah, because we deserve it. We've been bad. We deserve it." So we're thanking them for our own tragedy, and they're happy to produce it.
Okay, one last thing I gotta talk about. This whole concept of you're right, like, if this is true, then we it's interesting, right? It's the ultimate it's the ultimate trick because we are thanking them for hard times because that's what's told here. It's like you learn through the hard times, right? And
Right.
so
Oh yeah, that's
you
great.
get into that mindset. I see your point, I do. But just by nature of, like, what you're talking about, there's gotta be an element of, I guess we're labeling it good and bad, but there's gotta be an opposite to this. And you maybe don't label it whatever you want, but the opposite of cattle, spirit souls, and they feed off there's gotta be an opposite to that. There has to be.
Well,
They
well,
can't just be
I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Like I said, there's up and down, in and out, back and forth, right and left, but you're thinking on physical terms. This is not okay. Everything that happens around us is non-physical. Like time and space doesn't exist. There's a lot of things that don't exist. So when you're thinking of good and bad, you're thinking physical. You have to get out of that mindset. I'm not saying that we're not in good intentional creatures and that sort of thing. But even if there was that other side, it's not here.
it's just in no, I totally hear you, and I'm not even really questioning, I'm just a very curious person.
Right,
Like, when I think
right.
about, like, the astral plane, you're saying all these other beings, and not once has someone said anything positive. I find that crazy that not once has someone maybe, like, slipped up, right, and been like, "Hey, dude, how you liking that jail you're in?" Or, like, you know what I mean? Or they're not like someone hasn't, like, said something that made you go like, "Huh, why do you say that? Why do you say that?"
It's
That's
just
just fascinating.
different things that have occurred, whether it be on the dream state, whether it be in the glimpse state, in the astral state, or in the nighttime portals. You take all the information and you put it all together and then you start to classify what's happening and what you can see around you. Now, obviously the dark ones, they're the ones that have been the most profound in teaching me, because the more you're around something, the more you're in close proximity to something, the more you understand it. So, like I said, there's an energy exchange. Okay. And when I'm around them, there's some kind of you kind of understand them, and I know they understand me. And the more I understood them, the more that I started to physically feel kind of like almost like a hatred level and everything. I said, you know what? I was around him too much, and I said, "You know what? I have to mellow out, just try to, smooth out and everything." But what I did was I sat down and I wrote everything that I understood about them. There's like 10 or 12 things that I understood. I understood what they were. I understood their thinking, and I wrote it down. And I took about out of 2 months, I didn't do anything for 2 months, and I actually felt much better. It almost felt like, to me, I saw it as like a black sticky goo, and for me, it almost felt like I somehow, was connected with that. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way I felt, I didn't like the way I thought, and I kind of allowed it to get out of my system, and then I started back into what I was doing, but I took a long break from it. But that allowed me to get a perspective more from them to understand why this was happening, why they were doing this, and what they, not really their feelings, but just the process. And I wrote it down and I put it in one of my videos, and it was just it was something that I would have never seen from my own perspective, but I was able to access that through being close proximity to them.
Again, fascinating. Okay, Mike, we'll do round 2. That is certain. Um, Thank you, man, for coming on here. Thanks for sharing all that. I mean, you are by far one of the most experienced people I've ever come across. I mean, that's intense. I'm excited to I don't know if excited's the right word, but I'm gonna we're gonna scare some people with this one, and that's not my intention. I never want to do that. But I, like
Yeah.
you, I wanna just put information out too. That's literally my, like, I'm doing my very best to not pick a side, like, no team.
Right.
I just wanna ask questions, and I wanna post it, and if people find it interesting, great. If not, okay, you know? Like, I'm really trying to follow that myself. So, that's what I'll be doing.
Okay.
But
Okay.
my goodness.
But yeah, there's nothing that's off. Um, you know, I'll talk about anything. If I don't know, I will tell you. If I don't have experience in, I'll tell you. But, I don't have any, there's nothing outside the bounds for me. I'll talk about anything. So,
I
you
love
know,
that. I love that. I love that. I respect that. And yeah, I'm gonna keep going on my path. I think it's obvious I need to pop out here and keep, like you said, you gotta experience it yourself, right? And with this intention, it'd be interesting for me because I can't unhear what you just told me.
right.
So it'll be interesting for me as I continue on my path here, wherever it leads me. All right, Mike. I will keep you posted when this launches, and then I will link everything down below so everyone can get in touch with you, get your books, and yeah, we'll wait for round 2.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, Mike. Cheers, man.